think we were all art day, right? But
Art day. Yeah. Jeffrey.
I think we're all creatives in general. I think we just have to figure out what our focus and passion is and whatever can help us make a living, right? But I think, obviously, growing in an Asian family, obviously they wanted the best for their kids, right? And so I think, they wanted us to be, doctors or engineers or accountants or, nurse.
Yes.
We don't mean nurses. But, something, obviously, coming from the Philippines, obviously they wanted to instill sort of bring education. And so I did start actually looking into medicine, but decided that that wasn't the best route for me, and started going into urban design and planning. So I started urban design and planning at Ohio State University. I went to London and studied at the Architecture Association in London. Had my first job in a giant architecture firm called SOM in Chicago. And that's sort of my journey in terms of a designer. It was just these last 10 years when I had a life incident that sort of changed the path of my career.
Let us talk about that because it's also very important. It's Heart Month. Heart disease is the #1 killer of people all over the world, and certainly it is in America. And you almost became a statistic, to be honest, right? If we're being honest about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially at the age, so I was 30 years old, I had was working at some event that I was actually designing in Miami. Had issues with indigestion, and then on the way back to the hotel, I was like, either I could just sneak this off or go to the hospital. And so I think, typically guys are really kind of naive when it talks about listening to their body or actually just understanding their numbers, right? I think, going annually to get a health check, whether it's getting your blood work, understanding your cholesterol levels, your blood pressure. We don't go to the hospital unless, we feel there's something wrong. So thank God I listened to my body because I went to the hospital, I went to the ER. I said I had some sort of indigestion test pains. They knew my age and they asked to, do a EKG, and they said, oh my God, you're having a heart attack. And I'm like, what? And so being in Miami, the first thing they ask is, are you on heroin, cocaine?
Right.
Like, no, I'm
Right.
not. They're like, well, you're having a heart attack. So, so first of all, having that word said in my head at the age of 30 was kind of like why is this happening to me? They decided to put a stent in, and then based on all my issues with what I have within my heart, having heart disease and all the damage is done, they decided that I had to have triple bypass surgery. So I had triple bypass surgery, and then cashed out my 401k and my savings and quit my job, and said, life is short. I'm going to go back to my passion of art and do design competitions.
I love your story. And I love that this is basically your second lease on life, right? And you're making the most out of it. But you're not forgetting the message. Because in your art also reflects that experience.
It's interesting because, if you spell out the word H-E-R-T, A-R-T is part of it. And I know that's a cliche, but it's actually really something that's more personal to me. So you always will see something in my work that talks about that in terms of a topic, whether it's finding what is that meaning or purpose within an individual or a city or within myself, which is sort of the heart of a city, the heart of a person, the heart of a culture, is important to telling that story. But it also influences me in terms of the work that I do now, which everything I do in the world has to have a meaning and purpose. And you can see that when I share with you my large-scale work that you see in the Philippines. Maybe that is me having architect envy, not trying to design the tallest building in the world, but trying to create icons, And I think for me, it's about, if I had to, leave this earth, what are the legacies that I have? And I think this idea of creating icons in other cities has really been my legacy.
And what a proud moment it is for us, and it will be still for us when we, know that the artist behind those is Filipino, right? I like your message about health, physical health, when it comes to the heart work and all that art that talks about your journey as a survivor, right? But I also like the mental health aspect of the messages of, say, for instance, this that we're seeing now, the art that represents what social status, consumerism, right? Talk to us about the inspiration for these.
What I wanted people to remember is that not to forget your roots. And so when you're here looking for success, that you should always recall and remember where you come from. And that's why sort of this new series of work that you see here called Branded really talks about integrating something as simple as rice, which is sort of a basic commodity, not only in Philippines, but Asia in general, or India. And it's a very minimalistic, economical, it's actually like water, right? A very common element in our lives. And to integrate that into something such as a high-end brand that we're not used to having or having access to in some third world countries, where when you come to the U.S., it's all in your face, and the idea of success is being measured by, now granted, look what I'm wearing right now.
Right. Not saying that it's bad to go after things like that, but what you're saying is, while as you're going through that or going for that, don't forget where you came from.
Yes, that, but also, I think in general, not even just immigrants or Asians in general, I think it's the youth. We're so brainwashed by this idea of consumerism, right? And I think sometimes that there's sort of this fake facade that is created. I'm not trying to say that, wearing these brands is a level of status. I think, sure, we all deserve happiness, right? We all deserve to spoil ourselves once in a while. What I'm trying to say is that you need to do it within your own resources.
Right.
For me, what I've learned, especially after having heart disease, is that if I do treat myself, I do it when I can. Like when I win something, I'll take something and celebrate. But I won't put my whole sort of life into these aspects. So I got when I won my first competition, I got a nice sports car, right? But I could have got a really nice one, but I got a basic. And then every time I win, I just upgrade little by little. But plus, you don't also want to, my art is really about public art. It's really art for the people, and also a lot of my art is paid through taxpayer money. So I don't also want to come across as me being sort of using taxpayers' dollars to generate my lifestyle, right? I think public art is funded through the Percent for Art program here in the U.S. That's how a lot of art is generated.
No, so I like that, because some of these brands also represent quality, right?
Yeah. It's interesting because quality is also misrepresentative visually, right? So sometimes a image or brand or logo could be done in hundreds of different materials, and you would never know these days. So a lot of these materials here some are new, actually original, and some are fake.
Right.
So obviously I wouldn't be able to
finance
right. a lot of this work, but I think there's a mix of Rodeo Drive and Canal Street on here. There's a little bit of Green Hills and Greenbelt number 4 or 5, right? So I think there's a mixture here of both, and it's the true culture of the society too, right? I think it's okay too. Like sometimes, whatever you wear, if that makes you feel better, whether it's real or fake, it shouldn't matter, right? It's like it's a painting of what makes you express yourself, right?
Just like art, it's an expression of oneself. And I love that when you do your art, you're not just expressing yourself, you're also sending a message.
So the box series is really the name box, which is phonetic spelling for the word BOX.
Yes.
And these boxes on heads are really metaphors for buildings. And for me as a public artist, I was always about creating art about the people, investigating about the people, the culture, or where they're all from. And what I realized is that cities are not necessarily made of buildings, but the people and the emotions that create these cities. So these are actually named by adjectives of the positions they're in, such as joy, love, peace, empowerment. So when you put all of these together, the box series is really about what creates a great city, which is all these emotions. And when you put all the heads or the boxes on a horizon line, it creates this amazing skyline of what a city that has great culture and culture of people is really all about. This is called migration, the idea of a border where you have white and brown rice sort of intersecting together and crossing. This idea of a horizon line where you've got the reflection of the water and the rice reflecting south and the sunrise reflecting north. You have this sort of idea of crossing the border where this metaphor of this print looks like a city grid, and the idea of people crossing across. And then finally, this idea of sunrise and sunset that you can see that's very simple, this idea that we're always searching for that, And finally, this idea of brand addiction, So this idea that we are all addicted or could be addicted with all these prescription bottles of different sort of labels, and then also we're actually literally being hooked up like as an ID bag.
Right. I love that, the concept of addiction in the medicine cabinet.
This one is the American dream, obviously this idea of a journey and then almost the continent of Asia, coming across. That's sort of that rice Asia. This one is all about the idea of my journey of going to all these other areas all over the world. And as I look at other cultures and cities all over the world, I realize that, I hear different languages, I hear different people talking, but we all saying the same thing, the idea that we all want to be these things. We all want to be loved, free, passionate, independent, brave, but we only translate it in different ways. So the idea is that you scan these QR codes, and then we have a couple of top Tagalog words. You get a lot of people in here playing all this at the same time. It's kind of cool. You hear all these different languages, like as if you're in the airport. So for me, this section here is really the moment where my whole art career started. I just want to remind the visitors, this is how I started, which is this idea of having a heart attack. These poems that you see here really talk about my journey and explaining these. So for me to manage heart disease, because it's genetic, I take 6 pills in the morning and 6 pills at night. Still.
Every day?
Every day.
For life?
For life. Some I think I can eliminate, but for the majority, yes. And what I've done since 2008 is collect my prescription bottles. And then this shows 57,000 pills.
Wow.
The amount of pills that I've taken in the last 10 years. And it just gives an understanding of what I put through my body. Now, I'm not trying to maybe give a message to the farm industry, but it really sends a message that is this how I need to live my life, And then to manage, the reason why I have to take it is because of this. So I had triple bypass surgery, and then since then, one of them actually collapsed, and so I had to have stents put in my body. And so these are the mechanical stents. I have 4 of them in my body, and I arrange them like a flower in bloom, And so the last room here, a part of the exhibit, is this called installation that relates to the idea of the journey of where we're going next. And here, going to space. Perfect timing. So these are called Meteor Showers. And this room allows people to be part of this journey into space, and also be able to exhibit themselves within an exhibit.